go. All right. So today I'm joined by actor Brian J. Smith. How are you doing today?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. So we're here to talk about your new documentary, A House is Not a Disco, which focuses on the Fire Island Pines. First off, what inspired you to create this film?
Gosh, well, I think in a general way, I had been wanting to make something that kind of like went beyond just being like an actor. I was in Atlanta working on a mini series, and we were having all these crazy COVID shutdowns, and I was just like, what the hell am I doing? I mean, I felt, there's these moments where you're like, I just turned 40. I felt like I was spinning my wheels. I needed to do something that would sort of, like kind of get me
Yeah, yeah.
excited about stuff again. And so my friend Adam Klesch, who's in the documentary, and he's one of the producers of the Pines Party, he called me. He was like, "You've always said you wanted to make something. I think I can get us access to film the
Nice.
story of how the Pines Party gets made. Would you want to do a documentary about it?" And then it just sort of snowballed from there and became the years long project that it became.
Yeah, definitely. And this is your directorial debut. So what did you gain from that experience prompting you to shift from acting to directing?
Well, it really was like going to film school.
Yeah.
So many things that we are thankfully probably protected from knowing as actors. Sometimes I think the less you know about the way the sausage is made, the better. I mean, you spend most of your time, like 99% of your time is, you know, waiting in a room somewhere or in a trailer or whatever, just while everyone out there is like working really hard and making something, right? You're just sort of like on standby a lot of the time. So there were so many things I didn't know about, how cameras worked and how lenses worked, and like the way you can tell a story with a moving picture, and
Yeah.
what editing can do, what sound design. I mean, sound design freaking blew my mind. We spent a week sound designing this thing like you would not believe. And that was really great. How his score works, re color timing the film. I mean, these are all things I'd never gotten to do before, and just found that I absolutely loved them. And I just wish I had found all this a little bit earlier, because it's just
Mhm.
so fun.
Yeah, so you'll be open to doing some more stuff behind the camera?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Mhm.
yes.
Awesome. So A House is Not a Disco premiered at this year's South by Southwest Festival, and it was the opening night film of New Fest Pride 2024. How has the audience reception been?
It's been really great. And it's been interesting to sort of seeing the different kinds of audiences that we played in front of. Like we've gone to some, like some festivals like South by Southwest are like, they're so straight. Like they're
Yeah.
it's like thousands of like film bros, you know what I mean? Who, like,
Yeah.
I think they really want to see like a Marvel movie, and they stumble into this like documentary where like the guy is shaving his ass in the first, like, 5 minutes of the film, and they're kind of like, what am I watching? I think the real joy for us has been bringing it to queer audiences. I think that it's because it's about us. It's not, people think us is a film about like Fire Island. It's no, it's really, it's sort of a snapshot in time of where we are as sort of a culture right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the things that we're dealing with in terms of trying to be more inclusive with the trans community, and trying to like bring them in and have their voices heard, and what's happening with the Dobbs decision, which came down when we were filming, and monkeypox was happening when we were filming that year. It's just this little, it's like a time capsule of queer life.
Right.
And so bringing it to queer audiences has been like really, really gratifying.
For sure. So queer, straight, overall, what do you ultimately hope audiences take away from the film?
It's hard to say, right? I mean, I think one thing I've learned is that you do try to, when you're making the movie, or especially when you're editing it, you are trying to imagine, like the audience and what they're going to be laughing at, and what they're going to be
Yeah.
responding to, and when they're going to get bored, or when they're going to, need to kind of calm down a little bit. And, I come from the theater, where, as an actor nightly on stage, you're constantly aware of how different audiences are,
Yeah.
and how each night a show sort of tailor makes itself for that particular audience. You
Mhm.
can't do that with a film, like the film only exists as it is. It's the audiences who are constantly changing. So you're so, I really don't have any control. I really do not have any control over how an audience uh experiences this movie or what they take away from it. I only am responsible for for the responses that I have.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
watch it because in the end it comes down to like me and my own taste. And
Yeah.
so for me, whenever I watch it, I experience it as being very healing.
Okay.
Um, it's a movie that we tried to make where we didn't try to like widen the gap between people. We didn't try to like make more conflict. We didn't try to like make more angry voices.
Yeah.
This is a documentary about like, look at how cool our community is. Look at how we conflict resolution. Look at the queer way of doing things, the queer out the worldview.
Mhm.
And I think that's very healing. And I think it's something that's like, hey, this is the way things should be, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree for sure. And throughout the film, you interview a diverse group of people from year-long residents to seasonal workers, visitors, volunteers, activists. How did you find the subjects you included, and what decisions did you make regarding on who to showcase?
Well, we one of the smartest things that we did was we brought on a producer who actually lives out in the Pines. His name is
Okay.
Joe Conforti, and he's lived out there for decades and has been going out there, I think, for over 30 years. And he's sort of like the unofficial prom queen of the Pines. He's one of those people that knows everybody. Everybody knows him. He really doesn't have any enemies, which, is
Mhm.
really hard to do when you've been in a
Sure.
place for that long. So all of the people in the film are really people that he was like, hey, I think you need to talk to this person. I think you need to talk to her. I think, I know this business owner. Let's go in and like see what it's like to run the grocery store. Like, it was that kind of a thing. So he was really vital in us getting the trust of the community, but also just in terms of finding our cast. And we had over 140 hours of footage for
Okay.
the film. And so the real challenge was like we did dozens and dozens and dozens of character pieces and interviews, and it became like a really heartbreaking process of like, we can't get everybody in here. We
Yeah.
can't get all of these stories in here. We really had to like narrow it down just based on how we felt the rhythm of the film worked more
Mhm.
than like someone was funnier or cooler or more moving or something
Yeah.
like that. But it really all came from Joe Conforti. He was sort of like our casting director.
That's
Uh,
awesome. Was there a story that resonated with you the most?
I really, really loved the story of the Shiloh. Their name is Shiloh. You see
Okay.
them at the beginning of the film. They're the ones who are shaving their ass, in the shower and getting ready. And they start the season off so excited about being in Fire Island and the experience that's ahead of them. And I think that sort of childlike sense of like anticipatory joy is something so many people feel when they go out there for the first time. But then by the end of the season, when we catch back up with them in the fall, they've had a very hard year there, and
Hmm.
or kind of feeling heartbroken and like they didn't really find a place to fit in. And I think that is a much more common experience than we would care to admit out there.
Hmm.
And I think we've all had those moments where we felt rejected and felt heartbroken. And it was important to me that that was a really important, vulnerable part of the film. So that's not just like everything is a party and look at how awesome this is. So
Yeah.
there's like real hard truths about the kind of second adolescence that we get to have in places like the Pines. Thank God that it's there. Thank God we get to have those experiences out there. But it's really tough, and your heart really goes out to Shiloh in those
Yeah.
moments.
For sure. And what do you recall about your first ever visit to Fire Island?
I had a very weird experience my first time out there. It was 2015, I believe, when I first went out, and I think it was the summer that Sense8 had gone up on Netflix. Actually, I think it was like that week.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it was like this weird moment, that like you have sometimes like as an actor when a show has come out and people are like, and this rarely happens, like people are actually watching it. You're like, whoa, this is crazy. And I remember going to tea like my first couple days out there, and like some people at T had seen the series, and I guess recognized me and wanted, like, people like taking pictures and stuff like that. And I had like a panic attack. Like I had a full on, like, it's really uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
actually, now you're out there, it was hot, I just wanted to like get messed up and have some drinks and, do whatever. And so it was actually kind of a fraught, it was kind of a fraught first experience. And I really just spent the rest of the time just kind of like chilling out by the pool, which is
Yeah.
really what I do when I go to the Pines. I'm really not into the party scene out there anymore.
Okay.
I'm the kind of guy who just likes to go out and walk on the beach and hang out by the pool and read and
Yeah.
have really fabulous dinners with people. That's kind of that's my vibe.
Awesome. I love it. Do you try to go as often as you can now?
I do, but it is so expensive to get out there,
Oh yeah.
and also too, we spent so much time out there when we were filming
Hmm.
that, like I feel like sort of owning a house out there. I think sometimes you kind of need like a little bit of distance.
Yeah,
You
yeah, I get
need a
that.
moment, like, okay, I need to take a break a little bit from this place. So,
Definitely.
yeah, I haven't gone out this year yet. I hope to go out maybe later this year, but
Yeah.
it's one of those places. I'm glad it's there. I know it's there, and I will love to go back anytime I can. But I'm a homebody. I love being here, surrounded by my books and my dog, and just figuring out what's next in life. And that's
Yeah.
kind of good for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. And you kind of touched on this earlier, but there are a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community who are still a little hesitant to visit Fire Island because it does kind of still have that certain reputation. Are you seeing that change?
Yeah, I mean, the place is definitely changing. I think that like the Pines, and also, like, to be honest, like this is also probably happening in P Town. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that they're having some of the same discussions there. And Palm Springs, Mykonos, like, a lot of these gay destination utopias, right, are only a reflection of who we are as a community at large. In the 70s and the 80s, when the Pines was sort of going through a golden era, right, in the 1970s, it was really reflected of the kind of like, like artistic bohemian white muscled,
Yeah.
creative types that had found the Pines sort of on accident, right? And then in the 80s, it kind of became defined, sadly, by the AIDS crisis and
Yeah.
that really dark period. And now, like in the 90s, it became a different kind of like, muscly white kind of clone. I think what you're, I think what you're seeing out there in the Pines now is a lot more welcoming of diversity, at least a real attempt at it. And I can't speak to that experience because it's obviously I'm a white guy, but you go out there and you definitely see a lot more color. You see a lot more diversity and a lot more. I don't know. I hope that's the case. From what I've heard and from what we filmed, is that the place is really going through a renaissance. So
Good.
if you're wary about going out there, I would say just go. I think you're going to be surprised. I think a lot of people like sort of prejudge these places, maybe based on stuff that they've heard, like in the media or whatever. It's,
Mhm.
actually the reality out there is just you're going to have your own experience,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Go out there and have it. And, whatever experience you have is really going to be, yes, it's part of the Pines, it's what the culture there, but it's also going to be you.
Yeah. See if you
You
like
are,
it.
yeah, and you're also, what you do and what you contribute and what you want to take from the place all really is also your responsibility.
Yeah.
So, it's people should go and just be open to whatever happens.
For sure, definitely. And A House is Not a Disco also touches on other issues besides the sense of community and family. It also touches on things like beach erosion. Can you discuss that a little bit more?
Yeah, that was a real surprise. We didn't really, when we were filming the Pines Party section of it, which is this massive, massive party that they throw on the beach every
Yeah.
year. They've been doing this since, in one way or another, pretty much since like 1979.
Mm.
We thought it was just going to be the sort of story of, how they put the party up and the history of it. We had no idea that like one night they were going to wake up and have, from a very mild, way, way, way offshore storm, they lost about 30 feet of the beach, which out there is really, really, really massive. And
Yeah.
it does happen from time to time, but it's never happened like this, and it's never happened as frequently as this. And it's just part of this trend that like all these barrier islands really are seeing an accelerated loss of
Mhm.
land mass out there because each centimeter the ocean gets higher, it's like a force multiplier,
Yeah.
right? So that was a real surprise, and it's kind of a harbinger of things to come in a way. We don't really have a solution for it. I don't think anybody does.
Mhm.
The Army Corps of Engineers goes in there and tries to reclaim and rebuild the beach as much as they can whenever. But these events are happening more and more and more often, and it just goes to show we are living in a different era right
Yeah.
now, and
Yeah.
climate change and beach erosion is something that's going to be one of the major challenges out there for the next decade at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Definitely. All right, Brian. Well, what's next for A House Is Not a Disco?
Well, next up, we're going to we've got a couple festivals, I believe, in the middle of this month, which I don't believe we are going to. I think there's a couple in Canada, but I think with the big one that's coming up at the end of the month, we're going to be at Frameline
Okay.
in San
Nice.
Francisco, and we'll be there during Pride. So
Nice.
that's going to be really great. Me and my boyfriend are actually going to go out there for like a couple extra days,
Okay.
just to kind of hang out in San Francisco and be there for Pride because it's that city is like very dear to me. I love San Francisco a lot. So, and then hope beyond that, we're hoping to find a place for the film
Mm.
on a streamer or with a distributor. It's a really difficult time out there for documentaries right now.
Yes.
It's been an education to see how broken things are in the documentary space,
Mhm.
especially for independent queer documentaries. It's brutal out there. So
Brutal. Yep.
we're hoping to find a home for our baby
All
the
right.
next
Perfect.
months.
Awesome. Well, how can one stay up to date with the film and find out more information?
You can find us on Instagram. We are our handle is at a house is not a disco. We post there all the time about festivals that we'll be at. We'll post this interview, any kind of press stuff we do.
Nice.
It's all there. So and we try to do cool little specials on like our cast members and people in the crew. It's a cool little way to get sort of on the a house is not a disco ride, and
Mm,
we try to make it a lot of fun.
for sure. And how can one stay up to date with you personally?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Smith Espis
Okay.
on Instagram, and I haven't been posting as much in like the last couple of years. It's kind of been sort of like pedaling back a little bit on the social media. It's a lot.
Nothing wrong
Uh,
with that.
yeah, totally. But yeah, that's anything big, I'll post there usually.
Okay. Perfect. Then before we wrap up, are there any other upcoming projects or anything else you would like to mention or plug at this time?
No, not really. It's funny. Like I had knee surgery this year. We also had the strike for, this the Screen Actors Guild strike. That was sort of like, whoa.
I mean,
So,
that killed my work as an entertainment journalist. So
oh, right. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
affected a lot of people.
Yeah, that was really, really, and I looking back on it now and like I hope it was worth it. I mean, I don't know. I hope so. But it's kind of set me back, I think, like about a year, just in terms of recovering with my knee. And
Yeah.
uh, but I'm pretty much back in the saddle now. And I don't know, maybe I'll, there's a couple possibilities that have popped up in the past couple weeks. Maybe something will come through. So
All right. We'll see. Perfect.